When I go to a restaurant, I drink a lot of soda. Tina and I were talking about this before the show.
Quoting from Madison from Love on the Spectrum. She said, "I'm a Coke addict," meaning the Coke.
Okay, so as a fellow Coke addict, one of the things I know how to do is open a can of soda. Okay? Yet, when I go to restaurants often, servers hand me the can of Coke and say, "I opened it for you." Do they do that for you guys?
Want to welcome you to the GBH family. Now that you're here, we consider you part of our family, and also to the second annual Disability Reframed event. My name is Liz Chang. I'm General Manager of Television here and also of World Channel, which is a national news and documentary channel. And I am an Asian woman of a certain age wearing glasses. Many of you know that 1 in 4 adults, nearly 29%, identify as having a disability. Of those, 50% live with a chronic illness. Clearly, disability is part of all our lives, whether our own experiences, someone at work, and/or someone we care deeply about. From its beginning, GBH has been a pioneer in making media acceptable to everyone. We lead the way in developing captioning for television and audio description for people who are blind or low vision. Today, work continues with our Media Access Group and the National Center for Accessible Media. This global work has earned multiple patents, technical Emmys, and has made a difference in the lives of millions of people. From Frontline and Nova documentaries to the GBH News Social Equity Unit, GBH's content work is personified by Megan Smith, sitting right over here, and her a lot of you know her very well, and her disability beat for GBH News. With community listening sessions, insightful reporting, and inclusive storytelling, she has built bridges and trust. Yes, we do a lot here at GBH, yet we still have so much to learn. I know I personally, between last year's event and this year's event, have learned so much about the disability issues. And that's why we're here tonight for Disability Reframed. The American Experience film, which many of you saw at the table out there, Change, Not Charity, details the decades-long push for equality and accessibility, culminating in the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990. While curb cuts, ramps at building entrances, and braille on elevator buttons seem commonplace today, the battle for these rights landed on the steps of Congress, which determined people literally put their bodies on the line to change the lives of all Americans. Well, in 2021, GBH appointed Dr. Donna Daniewski as Executive Director of Accessibility, the first executive-level accessibility role in all of public media. Yay, Donna. Donna has been with GBH for 17 years, including 14 years here at NCAM. Her leadership continues to guide our mission and make media more inclusive for everyone. Donna?
Thank you, Liz. I just want to look out and soak this in for a second. It's really a pleasure to be with all of you tonight. Before we begin, I am a middle-aged woman, white, with salt and pepper hair and glasses. And I'd like to start, before we begin, with a quote from Rosemary Garland Thompson in About Us, Essays from the Disability series of the New York Times. There are 2 kinds of people in the world, the disabled and the not yet disabled. The not yet disabled must abide and accompany loved ones and family members who have entered into disability as they wait to join those of us who are already there. As our team shaped this event, we kept returning to a simple truth. At some point in our lives, whether permanently, temporarily, suddenly, or gradually, many of us or our loved ones will experience disability. Tonight, we'll explore how to be more welcoming to those newly navigating disability or chronic illness, how to adapt with resilience, how to find resources, and how together we can build a stronger, safer, and more connected community. First, I'd like to thank the people who made tonight possible. The GBH team from News, NCAM, World Channel, and the Forum Network. My colleagues Patricia Alvarado, Liz Chang, Brian Gould, Frederic Rigolo, Annie Schreffler, and Megan Smith, and of course, our GBH volunteers. We're also grateful to the organizations who shared their resources during tonight's reception, as you can see up on the screen. And a warm thank you to our generous sponsors, VinFen, Bentley University User Experience Center, and the Museum of Science, many of whom are here with us tonight. Now allow me to acknowledge the land that we share. GBH honors the Massachusetts, Wampanoag, and Nipmuc peoples, whose ancestral and unceded lands provide the foundation for GBH in Massachusetts. We honor the culture, contributions, and connections of Native Indigenous peoples to our work, our local community, and our nation. We recognize the importance of moving beyond acknowledgement towards action. We commit to learning from, including, and elevating Native Indigenous peoples' perspectives, voices, and languages locally and nationally. Now I'd like to welcome tonight's panelists. Skipping over Nicole, our moderator, for a moment, I'm going to start with Carl Richardson. Carl Richardson is the ADA Coordinator and Diversity Officer for the Massachusetts State House and a former GBHer. Carl, you can't let him go after this. Carl identifies as deafblind and works with the governor, the executive branch, the legislature, and state agencies to serve individuals with disabilities, ensuring that the State House is an accessible, inclusive, and welcoming environment. Carl is assisted by his guide dog, Dayton. Next, we have Tina. Tina Zhu Xi Caruso is a visually impaired photographer, a disability advocate, and a recent participant in the award-winning Netflix series, Love on the Spectrum. Known as Blindsided in Boston on Instagram, Tina is passionate about spreading awareness about CVI, cortical cerebral vision impairment, by capturing how she sees the world with a camera. And lastly, but certainly not least, Keisha Greaves. Keisha Greaves is a motivational speaker, the former Muscular Dystrophy Association national spokesperson, and founder of Girls Chronically Rock, a fashion line of adaptive clothing designed specifically for people with disabilities. And she's wearing a few, I think, of her logos tonight. Moderating tonight's conversation is Nicole Agois-Harel, musician, educator, and disability advocate. Nicole is the managing director of Open Door Arts, dedicated to increasing participation and representation in arts and culture for people with disabilities. Providing tonight's live captioning and sign language interpretation are the professionals from Partners Interpreting. And that's it for me. Welcome, everyone. Nicole, on to you.
Good evening, everyone. And I'm going to take a moment to acknowledge our friend Dayton here, who is giving us a beautiful display of relaxation. I'm loving this as a way to get us started today. But again, it's a pleasure to be with all of you tonight. My name is Nicole Agois-Harel, and I am a light-skinned Latina woman in my 40s with shoulder-length brown hair. Again, just want to start with sharing enormous gratitude to the GBH team. There has been a lot of care and a lot of effort behind tonight's event, so just wanted to thank them for hosting it and for all of that care. And just profound gratitude also to Carl, Tina, and Keisha for, again, all of the care preparing tonight and for opening their stories, their hearts to us, and sharing their wisdom, their truth with all of us tonight. By way of a little framing of my own, I wanted to just reflect on the word Reframed. So the title of tonight's event is Disability Reframed, as you know. So let's spend a moment with that word, reframing. So frames are edges that we place around a story or lenses through which we see and make sense of the world around us. Sometimes we create them consciously. Often they are shaped by our experiences. And when it comes to disability, we've all inherited and constructed our own frames. And they've been shaped by the ways we've seen or haven't seen disability represented in the media, by the way we have been raised, by the way we've been educated, and by our own lived experience, either with disability or with loved ones around us who experience disability. So before we begin, I just wanted us all to take a moment to reflect on the frames that we are bringing tonight. The frames through which each of us sees disability. Not to judge those frames or to feel judged by them, just to notice them. So tonight, let's try to engage in an exercise that Maxine Green would call reframing the world so that we may act upon it differently. So I'm really grateful again to Keisha, Tina, and Carl for helping us understand disability more clearly, more fully tonight, in all of its nuance, its complexity, its beauty, so that maybe we can act upon it differently. So with that, let's get started. And I know that Donna already gave a little introduction, but it would be wonderful if each of you could introduce yourselves in your own words. Just what are some things that you would like all of us to know as we get started tonight? Carl, would you like to get us started?
Sure. My name is Carl. I am tall, dark, and handsome. No. I'm a white guy of a certain age, as Liz said, with salt and pepper hair, and I'm told I look a lot like Nathan Lane.
Yes, you do.
I thought Brad Pitt, but anyway. I identify as a deafblind person, but I didn't always. I was born hard of hearing. I didn't become legally blind till I was in my late 20s, early 30s. And I'm now 57, and I'd say within the last 3 to 4 years, I've come to the point where I only have light perception. So my journey and how I perceive myself keeps evolving over time. While I do perceive myself as a disabled person, it's no more different than me having salt and pepper hair, being right-handed. It's just a component of who I am, not what yes, I am disabled, and I'm part of that, but it's just a component of who I am and how I perceive myself and how I hope the world perceives me. I currently work with the legislature and the executive branch to make the State House and its many programs and services accessible. It was a long journey to get there, but I started, ironically, when I had 20/20 vision, I wanted to be a filmmaker. And so I grew up using my eyesight to do everything because I was hard of hearing. And then over time, when I started losing my sight, I thought my hearing was getting worse, but I didn't know my sight was getting worse. So I blamed, what it was is I was a lip reader. I was so visual, I used that to describe the world around me. And now that I am both a person with a dual sensory loss, I've had to develop many different ways and many different tools to understand the world around me and be in the world. But while I do perceive myself as a person with a disability, it's just a small component. I'd rather you perceive me as Carl when we meet and talk and interact.
Thank you. Tina, do you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Tina. I would say now I'm a disability advocate for accessible sports. My coach, Joe Lamar, a Olympian, is in the crowd, Paralympian. He's amazing. And it's through Achilles International, but I wasn't always a disability advocate. I started out my advocacy journey. I guess it was kind of disability because I also have PTSD. So it started out with me losing my dad at 14 years old and starting advocacy journey through children's grief and speaking out about losing my dad through the camps of comfort zone, which gave me a voice and advocacy for that. Then I went to Camp Chasm, which is for kids with parents with or have died of cancer. And through that, I found my voice for advocacy, but now I turn to disability. And Camp Chasm and Comfort Zone has shown me that I can be an advocate, and I'm using what I've learned through advocating for them to be a better advocate for CVI and my disabilities now.
Hello, everybody. My name is Keisha Greaves. For a description, I am a Black woman, short, baldish, blue hair. I have on a black shirt from my clothing line, Girls Chronically Rock, bedazzled sparkly pants, and then shoes with black, cream, and pink, my favorite colors. And I would say for me, I live with limb-girdle muscular dystrophy. And for me, it took a while for me to realize that I even have muscular dystrophy because I was diagnosed in my early 20s when I was actually in graduate school. So being in denial of telling even people I work with, I sprained my ankle or I was in a car accident. So to see where I'm at now, like being on a panel with these awesome panelists, talking about my disability, if you had asked me a few years ago, I would say no way. But a little bit more about me, I'm a fashionista and I love watching reality TV. And I'm kind of a homebody.
Amazing. Those are the important things in life, Keisha.
Yeah.
So I've heard a couple of you, Carl, you were talking about how your disability evolved over time. Keisha, you went there a little bit. Tina, can I ask you to tell us a little bit more about that? So we know that disability is rarely static, right? That it really changes and evolves over time. How has your experience with disability or your disabilities, if you have multiple disabilities, evolved over time? What has that journey been for you?
For me, at least, it's like playing Pokemon. You gotta catch them all. I have PTSD, ADHD, CVI, blindness, and many other. But you gotta catch them all. I also got diagnosed with CVI at 19, autism at 22. It's been a journey, and what I've just known to myself, I never thought I was going to be up here talking about CVI because I got diagnosed at 19 and no one knew what it was. But I'm so excited this year. Carl, we should chat after this because we're going to have a CVI Awareness Day, September 19th, the first CVI Awareness Day ever at the State House. I'm so excited. Thank you, CVI Center.
I will give you a personal tour of the building.
And Tina, tell us a little bit for folks in the audience who are not familiar with CVI, what CVI is.
CVI is where my brain it's where my eyes see, but my brain can't process what it's seeing. It's like if you broke a camera sensor and you were trying to take a photo with a broken camera sensor.
And Keisha, I know you also mentioned receiving your diagnosis in your adulthood and how your disability kind of evolved as it progressed and how your identity around claiming that has also evolved over time. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So when I was first diagnosed, I was in my early 20s, but I was still like independent. I was still able to drive my Toyota RAV4, and sometimes I look back like I just missed that, driving to work, to different retail stores, playing my music, walking up and down the stairs. It was a lot to digest because when the doctors called that day and said, Keisha, you have muscular dystrophy, I thought she had to call the wrong patient. I don't have muscular dystrophy. I'm here walking up and down the stairs. Used to be able to play softball when I was in elementary school. So it totally took a turn. And then when I started to do physical therapy, they said, Keisha, you should start to use a cane. And I'm like, well, if I have to use a cane, it might as well be bedazzle. but of course, the insurance doesn't cover bedazzle canes. So I had to pimp it out myself. But even when I went to job interviews or going to work, as I mentioned earlier, they would be like, oh, Keisha, what's wrong? Why do you have a cane? And I would say, oh, I sprained my ankle or I was in a car accident, because saying those things just sounded better than saying I had muscular dystrophy because it just didn't seem right at the moment. So it definitely took some time to get used to shutting down like family and friends. The only way my family and cousins knew was because, of course, my mom corresponding with her sisters, my aunties. But it wasn't something I was like so open about. So it definitely took some time to get used to. Even I remember just even going out to the nightlife, walking up and down the stairs. Although when you look at me, you couldn't see that I had muscular dystrophy, but just for me walking up and down the stairs and walking with a limp, and people thought, I was too intoxicated or I was too drunk and things like that. But I'm like, it really wasn't. I really just couldn't get up the stairs. So I always used to have to hold on to a railing or hold on to someone else. But, now it's like I'm a proud disabled woman. I let everyone know I have muscular dystrophy, and now I'm a huge disability advocate. But it definitely took some time to get used to going on social media, seeing other people like myself of color living with muscular dystrophy helped me along the way. But it was not easy because just looking back of things I took for granted.
So building on that a little bit, and I guess this is a question for all of you, but just starting with you, Keisha, what helped you in the journey of claiming disability for yourself, and what happened once you did? This is a three-part question. My apologies. Third part of the question is, and once you did it impact your ability to seek the resources that you wanted, that you needed, the community that you needed? So what was the journey like? What happened in that process? And did it support you in seeking the things that you needed?
Yeah, it definitely took some time. As I said, once I was still in denial, and my friend one day suggested, Keisha, why don't you write a blog? And I thought, why would I write a blog about something I don't have? So that's something in denial. That's how in denial I was, about saying I had muscular dystrophy, even going to doctor follow up appointments. Every time I walked through that neurologist doctor's office, I thought she was going to say, Keisha, we got your test results mixed up. You don't have muscular dystrophy. That wasn't the case. And so what helped me is when my friend suggested writing a blog, I was like, all right. I just opened up my laptop, started typing. And as I was saying it out loud, all my symptoms, everything of me falling and not, able to catch my balance, I'm like, wow, Keisha, you have muscular dystrophy. That's crazy. It was never mind what the doctor was saying. So that took a while, and that kind of opened up the door a little bit. Another thing that helped me was going on social media, hashtagging muscular dystrophy, hashtagging disability awareness. And when I met so many others, like I said, that look like me, so many I can name out, especially one, Jillian Mercado. She's a fashion model and she has muscular dystrophy, Spanish Latina. And when I saw her, I was like, oh my God, she has muscular dystrophy. And that just, I don't know, it just did something to me that made me feel like ambitious, motivated. And I'm like, look at her, she's doing her thing and she is in a wheelchair. I was not in a wheelchair at that time, but that definitely just helped me kind of come out of my shell and kind of opened of me reaching out to others like, hey, I have muscular dystrophy, because like I always say this, yeah, I may get the support of family and friends, but there's nothing, and I mean nothing like talking to somebody who knows and gets what it's like living with a disability.
I guess for me, it all started with the time that I went to Perkins and finally got diagnosed with CVI and getting the recommendation to start using a white cane. I had no idea what a white cane was, so I started looking up blind influencers. I found Molly Burke, and she really made me realize I could use a white cane and I needed to get a white cane. So I got a white cane and finally started using it. Then shortly after that, I started my Instagram. It was originally about my nystagmus because I was in so much denial about what is CVI. I didn't even know I had CVI until I was reading one day at my last school, at one of my colleges, what my disabilities were. I was like, what is CVI? And I went on a crash course like Keisha. And I was like, oh crap, I have this. And I just, from there, I started being more open about it. And then Rachel from the CVI Center one day during the pandemic was like, hey, do you want to do a vlog for CVI now? I was like, sure, about your photography. And it just really blew up from there. And from there, I also have met other people with my vision, with other vision impairments, like Karen from Australia, who's a gay blind person who has showed me that I can be queer and blind.
So my journey's a lot different than both Keisha's and Tina's. When I was young, I started going to a deaf school at the age of 4 because I had a lot of language issues. I was diagnosed with aphasia, and I had to learn how to talk. You wouldn't know it now because I don't shut up, but I wasn't verbal till the age of 6, and I was in speech therapy till the age of 20. And once I passed all of that, I was like, I finally made it. I just wanted to be mainstreamed. I wanted to be part of society. I didn't want people making fun of the way I talk. I didn't want to be called a Helen Keller. It's ironic they were calling me Helen Keller before I knew I was deafblind because of my speech. And I made it. And I went to school and college. Nobody knew me from when I was younger, and I made it. And I went out to LA and tried to work in film and television for a while. But then I started having vision problems when I was out there, and I had to give up driving. And I didn't know what to do, so I came back here. And the eye doctor said, oh, don't worry, you're not going to go blind until you're mid-50s. I was like, woohoo, well, I'm past that now, and it sucks. Well, well, I shouldn't say it sucked. I have a great life. But when I was 18, 20, 22, I thought 55, that's never going to happen. You know, and then, like I said, I became legally blind when I was 28, 29, but I still had 20/20 vision. So I was fooling myself for a long time because you can be legally blind. So I had my first guide dog, Kiva, who some of you in the audience, some of the old GBHs I used to work with were actually talking to me about tonight. Because she worked here, well, she worked on Western Avenue actually, but I used to get on the subway with my guide dog and read the Boston Globe with no assistive technology. But the problem is, if I didn't have the guide dog, I would walk into a pole because I had extreme tunnel vision. Now I only have light perception. So even when I was legally blind, I didn't accept myself as a deaf blind person with a dual sensory loss. But you know what? When I finally did, because it got too tiring to try to pass, when I finally said, I don't care if anybody likes me, I'm happy with who I am, and people are going to have to like me for who I am. When I gave up pretending, a huge burden was lifted.
Same, Carl.
And I was not tired anymore. I could just be who I was. That's about the time I met my wife, who's in the audience. And one of the reasons why I fell in love with my wife, Megan, because she's never seen me as a deaf blind man. She's simply seen me as Carl, who she loves. Yeah, we're a couple, just like anybody else. And when we have our disagreements, not that we do, but we do, we don't fight over the fact that I have a disability. We fight over how it was your turn to do the dishes. You know, stuff like that. Now, yes, being with me does create challenges for her. If I'm not wearing my hearing aid and I'm walking around the house, I can't see her or hear her. And she'll tap me and I'll say, what are you doing? Why'd you sneak? She didn't sneak up on me. She's been trying to get my attention the whole time. But I didn't know that. So we've had to change and develop how we communicate. But, you know, as I talk to all my other married friends, they do too over time, right? So, so my identity has changed from a person who was only hard of hearing, and when I was only hard of hearing, I did not consider myself disabled, to a person when I found out that I was going to be losing and for a long time, I considered them two separate disabilities. It wasn't later through my journey, and it is a journey, that I realized it's really one. I have what's called Usher syndrome that affects both the eyesight and the hearing, and that it's really one thing. But now it's part of who I am, and I just and the one I'll save that for the wrap up statement actually. But my journey has changed, and what's interesting is in terms of network resources, I don't do Instagram and Facebook like my two young co-defendants do. okay? And I never will. And it's not an accessibility, and I just don't want to read Facebook and hear that your kid got the best first grade teacher.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily want to promote everything that I do, even though I've had some accomplishment. My wife does that for me. So but I do have peers that I reach out to, because I do believe it's important for people to feel like they're not alone. Like Keisha mentioned, there was a disabled fashion model, right?
Yes.
And Tina, you mentioned you were excited when you went to Perkins and found out other people had cortical blindness. It's important to know the statistic for Usher syndrome is like 1 in every 100,000 have Usher. I know several hundred people. To me, everybody has Usher. I don't get it. So it's important. I mean, I know 20 people that live within 5 miles of here. I don't understand how the statistic, but it's because it's important to join. When I started accepting who I was, I used to go to a support group for people with vision loss. And there were a number of us in that support group who are still good friends to this day. And we were all struggling, figuring out what to do with our life. One worked in the CV as a store clerk. I was working in the nursing home as an orderly after coming back from LA. A friend of mine was working in real estate, and we didn't know what to do. But we started talking to each other, relying on each other, depending on each other, understanding we're not alone. Paul later became the commissioner of the Massachusetts Commission for the Blind. He was the one that worked in real estate. My friend Joe became an IT engineer for Heritage Management, which oversaw a $42 billion investment. And I became the ADA coordinator for the Massachusetts State House.
All right.
Okay? But that would have not been done had we not had a network and support. While Tina and Keisha do it through social media, and I have no problem with social media, because that's how they do it. I do it differently. I tend to pick up the phone, call people, have coffee with them, have social gatherings. I'm more of a hands-on, not that their way isn't hands-on, but me, I need personal interaction. But I think not just people with disabilities, everybody needs to have mentors in life. And I have several mentors that aren't disabled. I wouldn't be where I was today figuring out how to navigate other areas in my life if I didn't have mentors I looked up to. So it is important, and I try to pick people who are positive, and there are many people, deafblind role models, who I look up to. Thank you.
Well, friends, our frames are expanding. So thank you for that. Tina and Keisha, you both mentioned folks in the community that you met through your journey who really had an impact on you, and you started to get into kind of how other aspects of your identity, your race, your sexual orientation, other aspects of your identity intersect with your experience of disability and inform your experience with disability. So it'd be great to hear a little bit more about what are factors and other aspects of your identity that have most shaped the unique ways in which you experience your disability.
Well, I have a lot of things that come to mind, but just being a Black woman with a disability, I feel like I have a lot on my shoulders. But honestly, just people with disabilities, we have a lot on our shoulders to begin with. So I just want to say that. But I would say just realizing over the years as my disability started to progress and I became predominantly in my wheelchair, is that I need to advocate and speak up. Because I realize if I do not, nothing's going to get done. And this is regarding insurances, primary care doctors, so many different things where I had to feel like I had to fight over and over to get these things done. And I'm like, why? Why is it like that? Like, I didn't ask for the muscular dystrophy. We didn't ask for these things. So sometimes that kind of comes to mind where I'm like, do people think I'm like, oh yeah, let me get that muscular dystrophy, no cure, no treatment. And that's what it was. Like, no, this is kind of something we have no control over. So it just kind of humbled me to just honestly speak up, because I realized if I do not, things are not going to get done, especially when I get messages on like Instagram emails like, oh, Keisha, I seen you post about this at the hospital. I had the same problem, but I didn't want to speak up. So that made me feel good because I'm like, now I just like don't care anymore. I just say whatever. But I just feel like that has definitely shaped me into the person, the advocate that I am today.
For me, this is Tina. I actually forgot to introduce myself or just tell you what I'm wearing. I have Doc Martens with rainbow laces, with star beads, and a blue dress and a black blazer. And I'm Asian American or Chinese American. I'm an adoptee, and blue tortoiseshell glasses that is mixed with purple. And for me, my whole thing is that I actually had learning disabilities before my cortical cerebral vision impairment, like ADHD and autism, which made me be outplaced by my school district. And from a young age, I knew what racism was because of how segregated the special ed is. Special ed schools are very segregated still. And I was one of the only 4 Asian kids, and I have had lots of racist encounters, including a teacher saying to me in my face, adoptee is not a word. And it really hurt me as a person because I knew that I was a Chinese adoptee, but I cannot be who I wanted to be in these spaces that were filled with white disabled people or disabled students that had disabilities like me. But through the years, I've realized through the love and support of just starting to reach out through the Boston disability community, I've met so many wonderful people. I see Colleen over there. There should be Leslie coming and Jack. I just have found so many people that are not racists that really care about the disability community. It is amazing how there can be 2 sides of disability. And through the Boston community, I've realized not all white disabled people are racist. And it just heals me to know that. And I love working with them.
So, as the white male here,
Sorry, Carl.
I have a different. First of all, I'm thrilled to hear your perspective. So let me say that up front. But as a white male who grew up middle class, comfortably middle class, I did grow up with an expectation that I belong everywhere. And I'm not saying that's right, but I'm just saying that's what I grew up believing. And when my disability started creating barriers, and sometimes access issues, what do you mean I don't belong here? And it made me more empathetic to what women and people of color and the LGBTQ go through, and opened my eyes. Now, that goes to, I'm still the same person before I had before I was open about the disability. So the barrier that we're all facing, because we know how to make buildings accessible for wheelchair users. We know how to make things accessible for Tina. We know how to make things accessible physically for me, whether you're deaf, hard of hearing, blind, whatever. What we're dealing with mostly is attitudinal barriers. Okay? For instance, last fall, my wife and I wanted to go hot air ballooning because I've always had a dream of going hot air ballooning. Even though I can't see, I still wanted to enjoy the experience. When we arrived, the balloonist said to us, wait a minute, you didn't tell me you were blind. And I said, you're right, I didn't. I still want to go in the balloon. And we had booked a balloon with multiple couples, I think. And he was afraid that I wouldn't know how to act in the balloon and a tight space. So he actually put us in another balloon where we got our balloon. So it actually worked out. But then he tried to charge me the single rate. And I said, no, the original quote, you made the decision. But that's just a small, but it didn't, or when I go to a restaurant, I drink a lot of soda. Tina and I were talking about this before the show.
Quoting from Madison from Love on the Spectrum. She said, "I'm a Coke addict," meaning it's a Coke.
Okay, so as a fellow Coke addict, one of the things I know how to do is open a can of soda. Okay? Yet, when I go to restaurants, often servers hand me the can of Coke and say, I opened it for you. Do they do that for you guys? No. So it's not the, I know when I go to a CVS, I can't use the self-checkout line because it's touchscreen and voice operated and all those. But when I ask the clerk to ring up my things that help me find the items, don't give me attitude because you chose to work in a place. So I kind of forget where this question started. But, I know. I have had different experience than they have because I'm a white guy. But I've faced some challenges, but I still think I belong everywhere. And I think there's also a difference between me because I'm older than they are.
I'm the youngest in the room.
Yes. Well, thank you. By the way, I love, as a hard of hearing person, I love sitting next to Tina. I can hear her. She told me that, so I'm not insulting her, right?
No.
Okay.
So
So,
blind people can be the loudest people in the room.
okay. So, I'm older than they are. So, when I think they're more, not comfortable, it's not the right word, because I'm very comfortable in who I am and identifying as a deaf-blind person, but I think they're more identity forward or conscious, meaning it's important for them to identify as a Black disabled woman or an Asian American woman who is also disabled and part of the LGBTQ community, where again,
Carl, you forgot to say I'm blind.
okay, blind, where if it comes up in conversation and you ask me, I'm happy to bring it up. But I'm not going to, when I walk into a business, say, oh, I'm Carl who's deaf-blind. And I'm not going to go on social media and talk about it. It just, and I think it's partly an age thing. And I just want to say, I think that also, remember, they were born after the ADA.
No, I wasn't. I don't think. Was I?
Trust me, we're coming up on the 35th anniversary, July 26th. I was born before the ADA.
Wasn't it 1998?
No.
1990.
I'm not that young.
So I definitely was 1 year old when it happened.
So there's a different, we approach things differently because they grow up expecting accommodations, where I grew up thinking I'm probably going to have to ask for them.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's just a different perspective, and it's just one that I want to make, just because I'm older, and I also tend to do things incrementally in the young people, and I agree with this because this is how I felt 30 years ago, want it all now, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different, the one thing that I think this is great about this panel is you're going to learn that we're not a monolithic group. We're all different. And we all have different ways of approaching things. But none of them is wrong. We're all working together, and we're all going to make a difference together.
And the frames keep expanding, my friends. Okay, Carl, so you started talking a little bit about the attitudinal barriers, how so much of the work that needs to happen is not happening, not because we don't have laws or because we don't know how to do this, it's because of our mindsets, right? So let's talk a little bit about stories that we tell about disability. And wanted to frame this a little bit on some disability tropes, right? That are like the dominant ones. And Donna, you quoted Rosemary Garland Thompson earlier. I'm thinking of the work of Stella Young and Paul Longmore, who define kind of like the ways that we typically understand and kind of characterize disability. So we have the super crip, who is a disabled person that is celebrated for doing something ordinary, right? So you got out of bed. Wow, that's amazing. There's the tragic victim, right, where disability is framed as a personal tragedy, something that we should pity or grieve. There's the villain trope, where, like Captain Hook, right, Darth Vader, right, who is kind of like a visual cue for danger, defiance, moral failure. And these stories have been created by non-disabled people, right, for the benefit of non-disabled people, because they offer us comfort or inspiration or a sense of superiority, right, rather than reflecting the actual experiences of disabled people. So with that, I'm going to ask you all, what is one story that you wish we stopped telling about disability? And on the flip side, what is one story we should tell more?
I think one story we should stop telling is all those tropes. I was honored to be on Love on the Spectrum and find my love of my life with Perry Kim over there in the audience. And it just makes me feel like disabled people can have a say in love life, and just it's authentically us. And Love on the Spectrum makes a beautiful statement of that. And I think we need to start doing more reality TV shows, more movements, more stories that are more on the line of Love on the Spectrum, because that's what disabled people want to see. The hard stuff, the love stuff, and just everything. But I just wish they would not see us as a villain or a tragedy. It's just you. We need to start seeing disabled people as people.
I would say for me, Keisha speaking here, that people with disabilities, we're not just at home in our beds, like just sobbing and not doing anything with our lives. Look at us up here. I'm running a small business. Look at Tina on Love on the Spectrum. Carl doing amazing things. There's so many things of us that we do out there that people don't realize. I'm like, we are just like everyone else. We may just need certain accommodations. So I'm just like, but we're just like everyone else. We love fashion. We like to date. We like to go out. So it's like, don't look at us like we're from aliens from outer space or something. Just, we're regular. We're just like you all. We just may need certain accommodations. But I just want to put that out there because I feel like people are like, oh my God, you have a disability, so you're just at home. And I remember a few years ago, a nurse was like, oh, so you like leave the house? And I'm like, yeah. And it's like, what do you think this is? Like, yeah, I'm a homebody, but I still like, I like to go out when the weather is nice. So things like that, where it's like, I got a lot of comments like that. And it's like, we're just like you all. We like to go out and do other things. So it's like, please stop it. We have a disability. Our life is not over.
I'm just toying with the fact that I'm either need to be pitied or a superhero. And I can think of incidents that have happened not too far long ago that would go to those two tropes or those two perceptions. About a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I was with my wife at Dunkin' Donuts, and I was standing outside waiting for her with my white cane. And it was a Saturday, so I hadn't shaved, and I was wearing jeans and a T-shirt and just hanging outside waiting for her. And a person walked up, put $10 in my hand and said, God bless you. And I wanted to say a few choice words, but I
You should have, Carl.
I did. And then I ran into somebody who works in the disability community, and that person knew a little bit about my story and said, wow, you need to write a book. And I'm like, why? What have I, and I'm not knocking my accomplishments, but what have I done? I simply want to be a person who's married happily, who's earning enough money to pay their bills and have a little left over, goes to the Cape occasionally, walks on the beach with his dog and his wife. Not in that order, I'm sorry. Wife and dog. although my wife does think I love the dog more than her, but we're not putting that to a test. I think the story that should be told is that disabled people have the same dreams, aspirations, and hopes that everybody has.
Carl, 10 seconds.
So I think that's the story. But we are fighting Hollywood or books or literature or art. I mean, it even goes back to the Bible if you really want to. I mean, Jesus laid his hand on the poor, sick, and disabled, you know, and cured us. There's nothing wrong with us, you know. So we're fighting strong forces, but I think by listening to people like Keisha, Tina, and others who are out there in the world living their life to the fullest, that hopefully we can change that.
All right, so kind of building on that a little bit, let's talk about allyship. When we talked about resources and supports and things that have been helpful to you, a lot of you mentioned people, right? I'm thinking of Mia Mingus, who talks about the idea of access intimacy, right? That moment of feeling a connection when somebody gets your access needs and shows up for you. So what does allyship mean to you? And can you share some examples of ways in which disabled or non-disabled friends, family members, coworkers have shown up for you, have stepped up for you, or ways in which you wish that they had?
Keisha speaking here. I would say for me, when I first came out of my shell of acknowledging that I even had muscular dystrophy, definitely I joined the muscular dystrophy support group. And I would say that definitely helped me because there's two friends that I met from that group that I still speak to this day, where I feel like they get it. They understand. Yes, like I may get the support of family and friends, but I know when I'm venting about my PCAs, body feeling tired, not able to lift up like a certain bottle, but it was able to lift it up just the day before, they get it. So that definitely has helped me because, like I said, at the end of the day, they get it. I can speak to them and vent to them more than I can speak to, like, say, my caregiver's mom or family member. And I would say from experience of after I was diagnosed in my early 20s, a lot of things changed and kind of opened up not just my eyes, but my friends and family of going out, say, to restaurants, having to call in advance. Is this wheelchair accessible? Because I realized some people may say it's accessible and it's not. And I get there and I'm like, there's stairs. So just like certain things like that, even traveling, going to a hotel, I got to make sure I say wheel and shower. Like it goes into so much where that kind of opened my eyes and also my friends and family eyes. Whereas now when, say, we go out to eat, my sister or friends like, oh, hey, I called in advance and I made sure that this restaurant was accessible. And I'm like, really? And I'm like, because that comes a long way and I appreciate that because they realize that along the way of those are things I need to do. If you want me to go out with you, is the place accessible? Am I going to be able to get in there? And so those are things that I've experienced and I really do appreciate, some people acknowledging that and taking it upon themselves to maybe do what I was going to do before I did. But just like having that support of like people that get and understand what I'm going through every day has definitely helped me along with my journey.
All right, I'll go. Allies are important. First I'll say my wife, Megan.
Megan, you're getting a lot of points today.
Well,
Just
but my biggest ally early in my life was absolutely my father, who did not have a disability, but he had challenges in his life. And one of the things he taught me was that everybody has challenges. No one gets away scot-free in life. But what sets people apart is how we deal with those challenges. And he also taught me that there's always a solution. He was an engineer. So to him, there was no problem you couldn't solve. Whether that's true or not, that's kind of what he believed, okay? And I remember when I was in film school at Emerson, and in those days we were using 8mm cameras to film our projects and splicing film by hand. And this camera, I was having a hard time looking through my viewfinder because of my tunnel vision. And he said, give me the camera. Come by lunchtime to my office. He worked downtown. And he asked me to come by. And I go into his office, and there are 6 engineers who were used to making 6 figures and building power plants and industrial complexes and things around the world, all excited because they're trying to figure out how to make a movie camera for a blind person accessible. And he gave me the camera, and what they did is they rigged up this plexiglass complexion thing that they strapped on top of the camera, and they cut a hole into it and said, can you see when you look through the hole? And I said, yes. And they said, that's what you see when you look through the viewfinder. But what that taught me was you sometimes have to do different things. And he was my ally, and he also did another thing. When I stopped driving and I was living out in the suburbs, he said to me one night, let's go to the movies. We drove all the way into Brookline. I couldn't figure it all out. We lived in Framingham. The movie theater was down the street. But we drove all the way into Brookline to go to the Coolidge Corner Theater, and we got out of the car. He said, look at this. You don't need a car to go anywhere. You can get on the subway. You can walk. And he said, you know, a person, and he wasn't.
5 seconds, Carl, sorry.
Why, is there a timer?
Oh no,
Yeah,
it's 5 minutes for me, Tina. No worries. You can keep talking.
I don't know what's up there.
Okay, so my point is he taught me a couple of things. He taught me the other thing, and I'll be quick since I have 5 minutes. Working at the State House has exposed me to a lot of different communities because people come to the State House because they need to advocate for their concerns. And it's not just people with disabilities, although I meet them all, but it's all communities. And it made me realize that everybody is trying to figure out how to live their lives, whether they're disabled or not. So it actually kept me humbled and awed when I see what people go through. But having allies is important. You heard me mention in a previous answer that I have friends that I joined a support group more than, 30-something years ago, and we're still best friends to this day. Without allies, I would not be here, okay? And they have their allies too. But so allies and mentors, and they're not all disabled. Some of my best allies, because I got to figure out how to navigate business and politics and all that stuff, some of them are people who have made it that I speak to. And so allies, I would not be where I was with allies at my side. And so allyship is hugely important to me. But I think that's true of everybody in this room. I mean, none of us would be here unless we had friends and allies who supported us along our journey.
What about you, Tina?
I guess the CVI community that I got plopped into during the pandemic. Rachel, I'm looking at you because you got me into this mess, but bless this mess. I love this mess, and I'm just so excited to be part of it. I met May, who is actually competing in National Braille tournament this week in LA. I'm so excited for them. And my friend Dagbar, who's all the way in Iceland, who is an amazing advocate. I love them to pieces. And there's so many other wonderful CVIers that I know.
Amazing. Well, so on that note, since we're talking about allies, and you have all at some point this evening mentioned resources, organizations. You just talked about Perkins. So we're going to do a quick round of what are the most helpful resources that you have found that you would share with folks that are starting to navigate their journey with disability or looking for resources for themselves. We're going to do a rapid round, and then we're going to move on to questions from the audience.
I would say the CVI Center at Perkins, Mass Commission for the Blind, and Mass Abilities, they're basically similar. And BCIL, and I forget which other one, and A&E, which should be in the room too.
So Tina actually covered some of the ones your state agencies that do rehab, but not all do rehab. Your independent living centers, she mentioned Boston Center for Independent Living, BCIL. I would say the one thing that makes Massachusetts unique over many states is the state nonprofit collaboration. So there are many nonprofits here, Brain Injury Association, Autism Speaks. There are many different nonprofit organizations. I would say reach out to Google, reach out to the leaders in that area. I mean, you know, there are, I don't want to name one organization over another, but there are many, many different organizations, and there are many support groups, and social media is as you can see, is also valuable.
No, Keisha, sorry.
I would say Tina and Carl pretty much covered what I was going to say. Of course, shout out to Boston Center for Independent Living. They're amazing, AKA BCIL. I would say Massability, Disability IN, if you're someone with a disability who's looking to start a business. With them, I was able to get disability certified, which puts me in a different diversity category when applying to try to get my line into stores. But of course, now with DEI, Lord knows what's going to happen. But yeah, but overall, yeah, those are pretty good resources. And I want to say shout out to Megan here at GBH. She gives a lot of resources too. She's always supporting people in the disability community, which I feel like, wow, because I feel like I need to step my game up with someone with a disability. So she also has a lot of resources, which I learned a lot from her. And so, but yeah, definitely like research, Google, but there's so many resources out there. But the ones that the three of us mentioned, I would say are the top.
I would like to shout out one more time Achilles International, which is an international organization for anyone with disabilities, including hand cycling. And my coach up there, Coach Lamar, is amazing. And you should, if you have disability, you should join us because we do Berlin. The biggest one is Chicago and Boston. We do all the majors, and there's always guides ready at hand to guide people that are visually impaired.
I just want to mention one more. Any town that has more than 50 employees has to have an ADA coordinator by law under Title II of the ADA. And many of those towns also have disability commission members made up of people with disabilities. So I would also see if your town has a disability commission, they will know what's available locally and might be able to point you another direction.
Amazing. Okay, well, with all of that, we're going to move on to Q&A from the audience, and we're going to take questions from the live audience here. If you have questions, please raise your hand so that somebody can come with a microphone. We will also take questions from the folks from Zoom. We're so excited. We have such a great Zoom turnout, so thank you, Zoom Room. And we also received some questions ahead of time. So we're going to take turns going from the audience to Zoom Room to questions that were sent ahead of time. So if we have, I think we have a question here in the room. Do you want to start with the question here in the room? Okay. Yeah. I think. Okay.
Oh, this.
She had the question. I guess we can go.
You want me first?
Okay,
Thanks.
great.
Hi, this is so awesome. I'm so hyped. I was interested in, especially with what some of you said, especially like Keisha, you mentioned how like in the earlier days, you would like be at a bar or a club, people would think that you were like, incapacitated, like drunk sort of or something to that effect. Yeah. And it got me thinking about, your story about like reading the Boston Globe while having a guide dog. The idea of non-apparent or invisible disabilities, I kind of prefer the word non-apparent as somebody who has them. And I guess kind of if you've gone through a journey of sort of it going from maybe less clear to external people who don't know your story and what your circumstances are, versus, like maybe a more apparent. Does that make sense? Sorry. Like kind of especially in terms of people's attitudes, and how you are treated.
Sorry, Carl. For me, I think also, Carl, at some point, Carl was functionally blind, which is where you tread between visually impaired and blind. I'm at that stage myself with cortical supervision plan. I'll stay at that stage as long as possible because I also have optic nerve atrophy, but that's really, really slow. Probably I'll be like 60 years old and lose my sight. But for now, I have sight. But sometimes some days it's better than others. Some days I can see everything, but some days I have trouble and cannot see things. I am night blind and I can't see when it's really foggy or gray out. So that's how I feel about my disabilities. I also have the like I have a physical disability that's non-apparent, which is a dyspraxia, which is where I'm very clumsy. I bump into things. It's just a neurological type of disability. It comes with dyslexia. I read up on it. I'm like, yeah, I definitely have it. So it's just it's the category of severe dyslexia. So that's how I kind of feel about it, is that it's just changing every single day.
Wait till you get to be my age and you don't care what people think of you.
I would say Keisha here. I would say for me, when I was first diagnosed and I was still driving, when I used to park even at the handicap accessible spots, they would, I would always get stared at like, why are you parking there? Like, and it's like, you see me with my cane. It's not a fashion statement. And, and I even had one person, like one night I went out in Boston with my cane and somebody came up to me and was like, oh, are you a pimp here in Boston? And I'm just like, random questions. And it's like, is that what people really think why I'm using this cane? But yeah, so when I was driving, like I always got stared at, like, that's for handicap accessible. And it's like, yeah, my picture is on it. I got it for a reason. So yeah, I definitely realized opposed to that. Whereas now I'm in a wheelchair, people might be like, oh, do you need help, etc. But Carl, I must say I am jealous. Nobody ever gave me money. Never.
Maybe try the drag shows, Keisha.
Well, I when I finally do retire, I know I have a second career.
Oh my goodness. Okay, with that, we're gonna move. We're gonna take a question from the Zoom audience that Brian is gonna voice.
So coming in from Zoom, what is the best thing about living with a disability?
I would say the community here in Boston and all my friends with disabilities, including Keisha and now Carl. I love both all of the disability community. It's just amazing coming out as disabled because there's a community waiting for you. The parents like Rachel, and people living with it. It's just amazing to just have a community that just is so loving and caring.
Yeah, Keisha speaking here. I would say, I would say it just kind of makes us unique, different, kind of makes us stand out, but also look like, wow, look at us. We're up on here on a panelist. We have disabilities, different issues, but yet we're still thriving, still doing other things and not really complaining like how some people might. And they're not even dealing with half the stuff we are. So I would say like, yeah, we're doing our thing. And I think the stronger of us, the more of us come together, more things will get done. But like Tina said, in Boston, I'm happy and grateful for the doctors I see here because I know for some people in my support group, other places may not have that, especially dealing with muscular dystrophy.
Period.
But but I would say, yeah, just the support and, I just feel like it makes us unique and different. And that's in a good way.
I'm going to say that because they've already talked about support and having friends and knowing you're not alone. So I'm going to say that having a disability teach you adversity. And if you can deal with and not only live with it, but go beyond it, then you can deal with anything. So it teaches diversity, problem-solving skills, and a different
Patience.
perspective on how to look at the world.
I have to say, I love that that question was asked very much.
And that's the first time I've ever been asked that, so I had to think
I also
about that.
have never been asked that.
Yeah. We have another question from Zoom, or
Yeah, this is directly from Zoom, and some of the questions that came in from the audience before the event essentially came around the same issue, which is how can employers support disability employment in the workplace?
Keisha speaking here. I would say I would like to add like ask what we need, listen to our reasonable accommodations. I did have an employer in the past where I did ask when I was doing merchandising, ask for certain accommodations because it was becoming a lot on my feet. And they totally disregarded me and fired me. You know, they would still deny that to this day. I remember filing an MCAD case. Of course, it didn't go in my favor. So again, wondering again, what is MCAD there for if they are not going to go in our favor? But yeah, it just sucks because it's like when us in the disability community may need to ask for certain accommodations, certain things. And if you're not listening or care, then it's like, then you make us feel like, oh, we're not worthy. You don't care about us. And it's like, oh, well, why am I here coming to work? So just kind of listen to the employee, like find out what their needs are, accommodations, because you don't know. They're just like everyone else. We just want to get the work done. We just may need certain accommodations. So just listen, be patient, and listen to what they have to say.
For me, what has helped me is internship programs. I first, with Mass Abilities, which used to be I forget what it was.
rehab, mass rehab.
Rehab. I use it interchangeably because I was under that. But I ended up doing a program with BCIL, which is no longer a thing, but they're still doing internship called TIP, the Transition Internship Program for kids coming out of or in high school. And it basically showed me that I could do a job. And actually, I was working as a busser. And after my internship, the boss came up to me. It's actually a pizza shop around here. He still is in the business of pizza and being a restaurant worker. You should go check him out. It's Union Park Pizza. He actually hired me when he was still an employee at this other pizza place to be an employee, and I was happily there for 5 years. 2 summers ago, I did an internship with Mass Commission for the Blind at Perkins School for the Blind in the CVI Center, and I enjoyed it immensely, and I continue to hope that I can work for Perkins, because through these different ones that has shown me through disability that who can give me the supports, I can thrive. Who can't give me supports, I don't thrive. And I want to be in a place where I can thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as an ADA coordinator who occasionally does employee accommodations, I can speak from the other side, not only as a person with a disability, but as a person who has to provide Title I employment opportunities. There's a couple of things. One, don't ever assume that you know how to provide the accommodation. The people with the disabilities are the subject matter experts because they're living with it. Ask them. They'll tell you what they need. That's one thing. Two, because some younger people when they're growing up don't have the same experiences when they're 16 getting their summer jobs, you know, working at a McDonald's, where you learn what we call soft skills, people skills, how to interact with people, how to count money, how to do daily tasks, things like that. Some of that is missed by people with disabilities, and sometimes they have gaps in their resumes. And that's sometimes hard for management to get by. But what they should do is when they're looking at a person with a disabilities resume and they know the person's disabled, understand that they have live experiences that make up for some of those lack of, quote, career experiences. You know, they had to develop some of those skills just to get to where they were. And statistics show, there were, if you look at like the Job Accommodations Network and things like that, statistics actually show when you hire with a person with a disability, they don't miss work. They're better problem solvers because they've already, by the time they, you know, even me, to get dressed and go to work, I've got to figure out whether my clothes match, and then take the bus and subway and take an hour and 10 minutes to get to work when it takes a sighted person 15 minutes by car. You know, it takes more energy, more thought. So statistics show that we're more productive. We don't call out sick. Yeah, and I forget what the numbers are in terms of what to provide. People also worry about their financial obligation in terms of providing accommodations, but there are studies saying that they're not that much. They're like under $1,000 on average or something like that. How many of you would not pay $1,000 to get a dedicated employee? Most of you would.
Yeah, I was gonna say so Carl mentioned the Job Accommodations Network. I would definitely recommend that as a resource. So the website is askjan, JAN.org, and really great resources both for employers and employees. So highly recommended. I think we have time for one more question from the audience. Yeah, Pari.
Thank you. So this is for you, Keisha. I want to know, where can you buy those shoes you have?
Well, thank you. I can't take credit for the shoes. The shoes I did buy from my carer, but I did have assistance with my caregiver because I told her I wanted to spray paint them colors of my business logo, Girls Chronically Rock. But yeah, they're on Ikea. They're actually on sale right now. So definitely go check them out.
Oh my God, I love it. I wonder if there's any in purple or rainbow.
I did see a lot of different colors, not specifically these ones, but I actually have some purple ones in my cart right now.
And Keisha, can you please say your website out loud so that people can buy your
Definitely go
wonderful
check out girlschronicallyrock.com.
All
Have
right.
different merchandise. I still sell face masks from the pandemic. I have t-shirts, adaptive swimwear, and adaptive swim t-shirts.
Ooh, definitely want to buy something.
Yes.
Yeah, check it out. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are out of time for questions, but I want to wrap us up with one last question for the panelists. Going off of that question that came from the Zoom room, what gives you hope about the future of the disability community?
I guess my friends like Keisha and Carl having successful jobs. My number one job right now is I want to work at Perkins. If that doesn't work out, I was really wanting and hoping to become a photojournalist that's visually impaired. But I don't know if that's going to happen. But it's my dream job is to become that. But I don't know. And it just feels like what's hope is that disabled people are getting more jobs that you would never think a disabled person would be getting. But then one day, some weird news, sometimes it's just a pity story or those stories that we talked about earlier, that it's just like, oh, look at this disabled person. They got a job in this. And I'm like, oh, that's great. But sometimes it's well written. So I'm just really hoping that people start seeing disabled people as we can do anything like anyone else in the world. And thank you, Keisha and Carl, for showing me that we can have successful jobs. As well as Colleen up there, wherever you are.
Keisha speaking here. I would say for me, my hope, for the disability community is endless. I'm always having big goals. I just want us to have sometimes I'm like, I wish us in the disability community can live in our own land. I want us to have our own president, our own rules, jurisdiction, because I feel like that's the only way our accommodations and things are going to get met. I feel like only we understand what we are going through. I'm like, we need our own jurisdiction, everything. So yeah, it may be for a big axe, but I'm willing to try to get there because I'm like, we need it. That's the only way we're going to get things done, especially insurance accommodation, PCAs. There's so much that goes on that people behind the computer, like I tell them in these board groups, it's it's so easy for you guys to say this or cut off these services, but are you here? Are you here with us every day? So I feel like there's so much that goes on, but yeah, my goals could be endless, but I want us to have our own little world.
Yes. Our own commune.
Yes.
So sitting next to two incredibly bright, gifted women who are quite a bit younger than me, what gives me hope is how young people view people with disabilities. Not only people with disabilities, how they view people of all different backgrounds in life, whether you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, whether you're part of a person of color. I think they do a better job of accepting people as they are than some of us who are a bit older. Not that we don't agree, but we have some implicit biases that we have to work on. And they do a better job. And that I'll give you a quick example. I went back and got my master's at age 48. And at the graduation ceremony, when I got there, they said, "Oh, Carl, you have a special seat. That way you don't have to walk up to the podium to get the diploma." And mind you, a lot of the people I was getting my master's with were in their 20s. And they said, "What do you mean he's one of us?
Aw.
What do you mean he doesn't get to walk up with us and get a diploma?" "No, we're not allowing that." And they're like, "How we get to the stage?" She said, "Don't worry, we'll walk up with them." That's what gives me hope.
Carl, why are you throwing shade at your age group?
Well, no, no. I think, by the way, I think you have a lot to learn from me. No, but I do think, I'm kidding. But I can tell you that my generation did not accept people of differences. The other reason I know this, my wife is a college professor and works in higher ed at a local education institution nearby. And when I go to visit her at her office, the kids don't even acknowledge me, which is great. Because they're not seeing me differently. Why wouldn't a blind guy with a guide dog walk into the building? Yet if I walk into a restaurant with folks in my generation, they stop and stare at me and watch how I handle myself. So, and there's nothing wrong with that either, because I'm teaching them. But I'm just saying there's a difference in the way a younger person will perceive me than an old, and I'm not, it sounds like I'm being ageist, but what gives me hope is how the younger generation perceives the world and how they think people with disabilities should be integrated into the world.
One more thing. I am sorry if I was using LGBTQI plus slang. I know it comes from African vernacular, and I really appreciate all of the interconnections in the LGBTQI plus. But I want to say that I understand where the LGBTQI plus language comes from. It comes from drag, ballroom, and African vernacular, and I just want to say I understand that as a disabled person, because some people don't understand where certain slang comes from. I just want to say that I understand where it comes from, and I try to be respectful of all the communities I'm taking it from. So I just want to make sure that you understand where I'm coming from, and I really appreciate all these communities that made it happen that LGBTQI plus can have this language too.
Well, let's give a huge gratitude round of applause to Carl, Tina, and Keisha. And I love that we're leaving on a note of joy and community. And Keisha will be taking applications for her city that she's about to start. So please come see her. Thank you to the three of you so much for all the wisdom and the stories and, again, the joy that you've shared with us tonight. Thank you all here in person and in the Zoom room for being with us and for laughing with us and for experiencing all of this with us. And again, going back to the question of reframing, I really hope that all of our frames have expanded today after hearing the three of them.
And one more thing, I, as an autistic, you know how people paraphrase things? For me, it was the GBH ending credits. So, and viewers like you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that was the
Oh, we
perfect.
can't do better than that.
We can do. I'm going to pass it to Donna, who is going to try to top that.
How could I? How could I? This has surpassed my wildest dreams. I just have to say, what a panel. What a night. Carl, Keisha, and Tina, thank you so much for your time, your candor, and your commitment to this important conversation. Nicole, your thoughtful moderation ensured that every voice was heard in all rooms where this conversation is taking place, here in Zoom rooms and living rooms across the country after the people turn off their computers. A heartfelt thanks to our planning team and our incredible volunteers for making the night run smoothly. And again, to our sponsors, Bentley University User Experience Center, the Museum of Science, and VinFen for your generous support. From sandwiches to sign language, your contributions made a real difference. And finally, I want to slow down for a second and sort of soak this in. Viewers like me kind of did me in.
I'm sorry.
I've worked at public media for a long time, so that was great. Thank you for showing up, for speaking out, and for sharing your experiences. Tonight's event, hosted here at GBH, where accessibility and inclusion are part of our legacy, represents, for me, the very best of what public media can be. And so I want to thank you for sharing in that. And thank you again to all of our panelists and our moderator and the teams that made this possible. Take care and safe travels home.